montage made me a little emotional. You are our most loyal fans, patrons, supporters. You all are here because you're part of our loyalty program. We know you've been here a lot, and you're the reason why we've done this. And we're all sad that this is the end. Final month. Sorry, final month. This is Elise Moritzen. She is one of our co-owners, and she and her husband Andreas, who couldn't be with us tonight, were huge parts of our success. Andreas and Elise. Andreas was just amazing in the last couple of years, holding the whole ship together. And Elise, as you look at this, how are you feeling tonight? And
yeah, I feel sad as well. You know, it's interesting. I guess I was thinking about this a little bit today, and I was thinking that it was 13 years ago when I bought my house out here. You know, went to the movies out here for the first time and looked around and said, there's something missing here. You know, there's a totally untapped market out here and a community of people who really love film, who are not getting the kind of film that we're used to being able to see in Los Angeles. And I was thinking about the fact that you know, at that time, all the gentlemen up here standing on the stage, we all got on the phone together and talked about this idea that maybe there would be something out here. And you came out and you looked and we decided and we jumped into it. And, you know, it's been a beautiful experience. It's been really magical. It's been an honor, I think, for Andreas and me to bring what we have all brought to the desert. I think it's a combination of community and a place for people to come together and talk about film and see film and have opportunities that they simply would not ever have out here in a market this size in a million years.
Yeah.
And I think it's just been really fun. It's been fun to put all this together. It's been fun, even the fight in some ways, while incredibly difficult and really painful.
Very fun.
Has been not that fight. The fight to you know, keep the whole thing going and moving forward and keep it fresh and keep it making a difference for us and for the people in town. And I just want to say to all of you, you know, Andreas and I are really, really grateful for the opportunity to have been able to serve you here. It's been fantastic for both of us, and we're going to miss this here very much.
I want to introduce a guy who's been here every single day. I don't think that's Brian.
No.
Every other day.
Yeah, every other day. Brian Tabor's run the operations here from day one, and a lot of you have met him. He is, you know, keeps everything running. Has kept everything running. Brian.
Thank you, nice people. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I absolutely love what I do. I love that we were able to come to Palm Desert, create this facility, create the type of programming that we've offered you. Really pleased to bring the National Theater live, Bolshoi Ballet live from their destinations, their original locations, and a combination of sophisticated films for this audience that you enjoy, thinking films, and a combination of the arts. So it's been a real pleasure here. Absolutely love it. Wish we were staying. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you. What a fantastic 13 years it's been here. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Brian.
We have one of our partners is an actor. I think his career is starting to get some traction right now. Brian?
Well, that's
this is Brian. This is an actor named Bryan Cranston. He's on IMDb and everything.
Hello, everybody. They kicked it off. I came in a little later, so it was really their structure and their business model and agenda that I bought into, and that was to make an environment that is comfortable and also celebrates film not as a pastime, but as an art form. And all of you then are the patrons of the arts. This is, in a way, a little museum. And we hope, and we're so grateful for all your years of patronage. And it's the association with you people that we're so grateful for. I also want to take a moment to point out and thank our staff, our people behind the counters and the ticket sales for all these years of loyal service. Thank you to them. It's been a great ride. It's been a learning experience for all of us. Elise said it was a lot of fun. I think, like childbirth, she forgets certain aspects of it. But in the end, we have. It wasn't our choice to leave, so that you know it. And cue the thing. It wasn't our choice to leave, but leave we are. And all good things do come to an end, and it's our time to go away. So we are very fortunate to be able to have these times together and bring all the Q&As to you because of that reason. So I just want to say thank you again. Thank you for having us. And in a minute, we're going to introduce Jay to come down and say a few words. But Steve, why don't you finish it off?
Yeah, there's some people in the audience I want to recognize individually. First of all, Dee Helfgott, who has been one of our great ambassadors. Couldn't be here tonight, but she has been amazing, amazing.
I heard she's seeing a movie at the river. What, too soon? Too soon?
Yes, too soon.
Too soon.
Bill Feingold is here from K News. He's moderate many of our Q&As. He's a wonderful guy. Kevin, his producer, again, been here all the way. Michael Felsey is here from the Desert Sun. He has been fantastic. Was with the Desert Sun. A great guy who has given us all kinds of coverage. You know, when we open these little films, smaller films, it's sometimes difficult to find reviews, and so I was always on Michael. I was like, no, you gotta find a review. You gotta find a review for this film. And he did an amazing job with it. Bruce Fessier has been fantastic from the Desert Sun. Hey, Bruce, thank you. Leighton Gitt is here. He was with the Desert Sun for a long time. His brother, Nathan, was a huge fan of the theaters, and he loved our Q&As, and he tragically passed away last year. We really considered him to be part of the family. He came to many of our Q&As, so God bless Nathan, and thank you very much, Leighton. Robin Simmons moderated many of our Q&As. Robin Simmons, you've done an amazing job. Thank you for all the amazing coverage in the CV Weekly. I want to thank Kay Shackleton. Kay Shackleton, if you follow us on Facebook, she keeps our Facebook page. She also put together the montage of Q&As you saw tonight. She has been here, again, every step of the way, an unbelievable supporter of what we do. And Kay, we thank you and love you. And all of you, I mean, you've evangelized for our theater. Susie Pete has passed out little business cards. She's not one of our employees, but she has been. Goes to the Palm Springs Film Festival and hands out our business cards. This has been a great experience. We really love you. None of us ever made a dime. And yet, this has been one of the most gratifying experiences. We can all testify to that. One of the most gratifying experiences of my life, and we're all very proud of what we've been able to create here. So thank you. And I want to let you know that there's a new operator coming in here. It's a company called TriStone. we don't know exactly what they're going to do, but don't think that we've got any hard feelings. We welcome them. Please support them. I've spoken to the owner. She seems like a very, very nice and competent lady. So, there are no hard feelings between us and TriStone. There are only hard feelings between us and Cinemark and us in Westfield. So I just want to tell you the truth there. Truth sometimes slips out. So, I would like to introduce, this guy was just here because Brian and Jay Roach collaborated on Trumbo. They were both here for, I think we did 3 Q&As, three sold-out Q&As that night. Jay is an extraordinary director. If you ever saw the movie Game Change, a fantastic movie. Recount, a fantastic film. As I mentioned, Trumbo, and tonight I want to introduce Jay because this kid is really, really good in All the Way, and if you haven't seen it, it's spectacular.
Well, let's see it tonight.
You'll see it tonight, right. If you haven't seen it, it's spectacular. So, it's on HBO.
If you have seen it, not so good.
I think it's on demand. And I want to welcome Jay Roach to introduce All the Way.
Hi.
Here we are.
What a bittersweet occasion. It's almost like the least important thing going on tonight is showing our film. But we got to show Trumbo, as was mentioned, and it was one of the great days of our Trumbo tour because you guys like movies, and you really like movies, and that's the kind of people we make films like this for, and you don't have an instant automatic audience for films like this. As much as we hope they're relevant, and you'll tell us after you see this one. These coming to a place like this is what it's all about. So it is bittersweet to think, we'll be back with the next one. But tell those TriStone people that just keep asking for Bryan Cranston movies. Don't let them skip over those. Tonight's film is about LBJ. It was based on the incredible Tony-winning play that Robert Schenken wrote. He also did the screenplay for us. Brian also won a Tony for it on Broadway. It's an adaptation of that. And it is actually, in today's political environment, where political experience is almost a dirty word. It's a really interesting film about leadership, and so you'll have to tell us afterwards if you agree with us that it's as much about today as it was about 1964.
We'll be back. There's nothing more to say. He was the 36th president of the United States, for those of you who are too young to remember. And I was deeply honored to be able to slip into those big shoes. We'll be back, and we'll have a nice exchange afterwards. So I hope you enjoy All the Way.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Spectacular, right? And right now, really excited to welcome the director of All the Way, Jay Roach, and the star of All the Way, Bryan Cranston. Guys, amazing. Amazing film and amazing performance. I think start out with the performance, Brian, which was built originally on Broadway and comes to the screen. I would imagine unbelievable research into who Lyndon Johnson is and the character that we saw.
Well, I should give credit. It was initially commissioned by the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and so it was a theater piece there done by that great organization. Really wonderful work. I did not see it there, but in 2012, I began talking to Bill Rausch, who is the artistic director of Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and Robert Schenken, and talking about doing this at the ART in Boston, out of town, and then moving it to Broadway. And I was always dependent on how we did in the reviews and how people felt about it. And I was like, okay, that's legitimate. And yeah, a tremendous amount of work. I was very, very intimidated by this big role. But I had a lot of help. There's tremendous amount of source material, biographies, and Lyndon's autobiography as well as the consultants, some of which worked on this film with us, Michael Beschloss and Doris Kearns Goodwin and Joe Califano, and I mean, there's so many books. It was an endless supply of material. All that means that it's all out there floating. From an actor's standpoint, you're kind of waiting for something to come in, and as it does, as you keep working, it keeps coming in. And at some point, through kind of an osmosis, it kind of seeps into you. You just have to trust that it will. And it seeps into you, and from that point on, you grab a hold of that character, and you hang on to him. And everything then is filtered through your impression of what that character is. And so that's what you present on stage or on screen.
You know, part of the amazing part of this performance, I think, is the physical presence of Lyndon Johnson, the way he sort of gets in people's faces and makes them feel uncomfortable. Did you study actual film, tape of Lyndon Johnson? Look at exactly how he carried himself physically?
Well, he was a big man to start with. He was almost 6'4", if not 6'4", and a healthy girth to him. He was always battling his weight. And he used his size to intimidate and manipulate and do whatever it took to get what he wanted, to fulfill his agenda. It was very well documented. Every biographer writes about it. It's called the Johnson treatment, as we even say in there. And even when you know it's about to happen, he's going to give me the Johnson treatment or the Texas twist, and yet it happens anyway because of the sheer will of that man and his determination. He was an amazing character, and when Jay and I worked on Trumbo, we had a little bit of a shorthand and an understanding that we would work as a team to try to make this the best and most honest portrayal of that character, and for this as well, is that coming from the stage, it's a different performance. It's a little larger. We had a 1,450 seat theater, and it raked way back and high, so we had to lift our heads quite a lot and project the volume. Even though I had a microphone embedded in my hair on stage, I had to project a lot in order to do that. Whereas in film, we're able to bring it down really quietly, and it comes in so close. So it's a little different, but
Jay, it's obviously an incredible script, an incredible play first by Robert Schenken, and then he adapts his own play for film. Did you see a movie there from the moment you saw it on stage?
I did. I saw it as an epic battle compressed into an 11-month period, which is always great for a 2 hours plus movie, because it was actually fairly contained. It was this fantastic predicament of a guy who wants to be president his entire life, gets the presidency through the worst possible situation, the assassination of a revered president, and then has to make the best of it, and instead of coasting and consolidating power, takes on the most controversial and kind of, in a certain way, ill-advised issue you could take on at that moment, which was civil rights. So the minute I saw that, I was like, absolutely this can be a movie. And in a way, I recognize that what Robert Schenken did to condense such an epic cinematic story to the stage was what was the real thing. Opening it back up to film would actually, I thought, might be a little easier. And Schenken did the screenplay, and what he did was open it up to some extent in using things like the ranch. The amphicar was one of my favorite moments in the movie. Talk about the Johnson treatment. He actually would do that. Doris Kearns Goodwin, who worked with him towards the end of his presidency and then went to the ranch with him to work on his memoirs, described a moment where she had no idea that it was anything other than just a regular convertible car. He was definitely distracting her by drinking and driving 80 miles an hour on the dirt roads anyway. And then he veers off into the lake. I got no brakes, I got no brakes. And she thought she was going to die and they were going to drown. And instead, he would typically throw people off balance using pranks like that, and then try to get them to do something he wanted them to do. So I just thought he opened it up in such a beautiful way, but he also gave us scenes like that scene with Walter Jenkins in the bedroom, when he talks about, he's past the bed and Walter comes and sits with him, or the scene, one of the scenes I love is when he confronts Humphrey about the Vietnam War and says, "Are you with me or against me?" and accuses him of not being with him, and Humphrey says, "I'm standing right here beside you." He goes, "A cold comfort you are." And that's like, a camera can get in there and show that over Humphrey's cheekbone, and into the eyes of a great performer, and that's cinematic. That's actually the most cinematic thing you can do, is connect people at the most intimate level to the most compelling kind of conflict with the highest stakes possible. And Schenken did a great job. It was my hat's off to the screenwriter. Screenwriters never get enough credit. We talked about this in Trumbo, a movie about screenwriters, but it's true again in this situation.
LBJ was obviously worked his entire life to be president, and yet he seemed so uncomfortable in the job. He had I think he seemed...
What the hell are you talking about?
He seemed so...
He didn't see it that
so
way.
insecure. I mean, he has that scene where he tells Lady Bird Johnson that I'm just going to quit. I'm just going to resign. He was at times very, very unsure of himself.
I think he would be diagnosed as bipolar. He had high highs and low lows. He had towering confidence and crippling insecurities. And they're not mutually exclusive. It was all within that man. Bill Moyers, the famed journalist who was a speechwriter and a press secretary for him for a period of time, knew him well, and he said one of the greatest quotes that really puts it in context. He says, 11 of the most interesting people I have ever met is Lyndon Johnson. You can't ascribe one characteristic to the man. He was all of those things. He was warm and he was cold. He was gracious and he was rude. He was crude and he was not refined, I wouldn't say, but he was a raconteur, and he was friendly and funny and serious and sincere and fun, silly, and I mean he was all over the place. I remember Bill telling me when I met with him, he said he would come into the outer office, the Oval Office, and step up to the door, grab the handle, and take a breath. Here we go. And then enter in, because he just didn't know which LBJ was going to be on the other side of the door at any given time. It was that mercurial. He said 3 days before the election, when, oh, this magically appeared. 3 days before the election, LBJ was in a down mood, and he said, I just want to go back to my ranch. I don't want to deal with this. I can't have it. I don't want it. The people don't love me. I just want... And they had to talk him down off that emotional ledge. He probably used it as a weapon of sorts, and put people off or to draw people into him. We know people like that who use their insecurities or something as a way of gaining attention and power. And he was no different. So just an incredibly intense, complex man.
The other primary roles in this film, Melissa Leo, who just, I mean, she just embodies Lady Bird Johnson. Bradley Whitford as Hubert Humphrey. Anthony Mackie as Dr. King. How much of your casting had to do with physical appearance? Because they all have a resemblance. Sort of describe that casting process.
It's always a kind of complicated formula. You want to have the audience lose track of the difference between the actor and the character, and to a certain extent you want characters who can channel the character, the essence of the character, but you do have to provide a little bit of verisimilitude. But in the Dr. King thing, I mean, that was the part that kept me awake, because you just can't, underdo Dr. King. And particularly after Selma, we didn't want to be sort of the answer to Selma. I really loved that film. I actually really loved it. And I just wanted to make sure we had someone truly charismatic, truly passionate, all the things that I associate with Dr. King, but I didn't feel like it was imperative to match his physique. With LBJ, there was something Brian had done on stage, and I knew we should go further with it, and we went that way, and Brian completely transformed. But somehow with King, I thought it was okay, because Dr. King is almost more iconic, more revered, more almost, deified. And I thought going for that impersonation might actually be more distracting than going for something else, which is what Anthony did, which I really admired. And it was a combination of us talking about it, that he would try to capture the political side of Dr. King, which is not some side that people see that much in portrayals. The predicament he was in with the sort of right-leaning, more conservative-leaning, I should say, not right-leaning, but more conservative NAACP, and the more activist Stokely Carmichael, the Freedom Summer people. He was torn, and that was the great structure of Schengen's play, is seeing, I think people who don't know the civil rights movement that way might assume it's all one monolithic,
All united.
Sort of set of motivations and objectives, and it was very much not that. There's a lot of conflict with it. And then LBJ is also caught up between, the Dixiecrats are very much towards the segregation thing, the right-wing thing, and then the more progressive people like Humphrey. And so you see two gentlemen who are so much trying to do the best they can, negotiating all the forces on them, and then also having to decide if they can trust each other enough to ally, to pull off this impossible achievement, which is the Civil Rights Act. So each character has its own set of issues as you're casting, and I think for me that was okay. It was good. I knew what Anthony needed to do, what he needed to do, I knew what Brian needed to do, and then but getting Frank Langella to play Uncle Dick Russell, to get the cool secondary characters like Fannie Lou Hamer, that woman who played her. I mean, and in the read-through, people were weeping. I knew we had something great going on there. And one of my favorite character arcs and story arcs in general is Walter Jenkins, played by a completely unknown guy, Todd Weeks, who, that character is really important. Another Moyers quote, Moyers told me that if Jenkins hadn't been thrown under the bus over being caught in the YMCA bathroom, Vietnam might have never happened. I was like, whoa, say that again. He goes, he needed a confidant, and he had that man with him by his side, the closest, except for Lady Bird, the closest person to him in his whole life since 1938 when he ran for Congress. And for all those years, some 28 some odd years, 30 years, that guy was the closest, and he never knew he was gay, which is fantastic. I mean, it's a story thing. tragic as a personal thing. And still to this day, people in that world say, well, he just got so stressed out he turned gay for a night. It's one of my, it's like, oh my God. And he'd been arrested in 58, you know, so the poor man had lived this other life. And anyway, so Moyer said if he did, you know, he had McNamara, all these people saying, this time we're going to do it right. We're going to send this many more troops and we're going to bomb this many more people and we'll solve it this time. And every time, of course, it didn't get solved. And having a person like Walter might have given LBJ another sounding board that might have just added some reason and wisdom back into the situation. And when Moyers told me that, I was just like, oh, I actually would love to do a story just about the Walter Jenkins story, because that was so such an amazing, complex situation. So yeah, the casting was everything.
And after he left office, they reacquainted, and he worked.
Yeah,
for him.
LBJ. Walter went back to Austin, became an accountant, which he had been before many years ago, and LBJ and Jenkins reconnected after he retired and went back to Austin.
Johnson won in a landslide in '64, but you saw cracks in the Dixiecrat kind of bloc in Congress. Nixon then later exploited that in '68 with the Southern strategy. We actually see in this film the beginning of the flip of the electoral map, and it has stood until this day. Did Johnson, in your mind, do you think Johnson knew he was going to lose the South?
It was a great fear of his, and he realized that if he was successful in getting through the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, but Civil Rights Act, 6 months after he took office, by the way, that he would most likely lose the South. But therein lies the real issue, where you look at partisan politics compared to what is best for the country. And he chose what was best for the country over his own supporters, the people who supported him all the way through Congress and through becoming the Senate Majority Leader and everything else. It was, and his mentor and his father figure in Richard Russell. And he knew he was at risk of losing all of that. And still, to me, that is the sign of character. When you make decisions under pressure, that is what develops character. And that, to me, is what developed his character as a man, as a president, knowing that he needed to be on the right side of history. And we cannot treat a whole subsection of people, let alone our own citizens, this way. So he was willing to go to war and lose it all. And I think he felt that he, you know, even though he won in '64, it gnawed on him. And his relationship with Dick Russell was never the same. It was brutal and distant and unfortunate. But in the long run, and history will tell us that it was worth it. And I think if you look in retrospect, if all of us had that issue, say, would you be willing to lose your best friend, your mentor, if it meant gaining something necessary or beneficial for society? And I think immediately you would go, oh, but I have to make this decision, and that's what he did.
You know, we're in the midst of a presidential election, Jay.
We are?
I read
I wasn't aware.
You are a student of politics. You did Recount, you did Game Change. This is obviously an area that fascinates you. I'm wondering if you look at the story of LBJ in this period and look at today's politics, is there some correlation? Is there something to learn there?
Well, there's a lot of
We may lose half the audience.
Yeah, that's right. I'll try to say it country first, as opposed to partisan, as opposed to my own partisan leanings, because I do think it's about our country. We all go to the polls and create our own government. Our founding fathers figured out a way to have us feel and practically achieve a sense of representation, or an actual representation in government, and the belief that government can do things and solve problems and raise the quality of life for Americans and diminish suffering for Americans is the basis of what government is all about. It's our government, it's us. So when we attack, when there was a certain drive to attack government, and we're all, on both parties actually, the popularity of Congress is so low, the sort of faith in politicians to do what we hope they will do is so diminished. Partly, I do think, by a kind of steady drumbeat of, I feel like a kind of propagandistic effort to convince people based on their own fears that that the government is betraying them. We're in the middle of delegitimizing the sense of government, and that is the opposite of Johnson. He had served in government, he publicly, sacrificed, he made a lot of money, but he could have made a lot more money in business, and he was a public servant for nearly 30 years before he was president. And then when he gets there, he has the experience to actually compromise, and he has the faith in government's ability to solve problems, to the extent that he not only passes the Civil Rights Act of '64 and the Voting Rights Act of '65, two of the most important bits of legislation of the entire 20th century that we're still using today. Some ground has been lost in those. But he passes tremendous increase in funding for public education. I particularly am grateful to him for that, because I went through a public school in the 70s, right when all the teachers were getting good salaries, and we were like, public education was thriving in those days. He does transportation, immigration reform, the arts, the AFI, PBS, NPR, Medicaid, Medicare for public. He does an incredible amount of legislation in those early years of his, and it's all kind of fogged and understandably blotted out by Vietnam. No question, he made horrible mistakes in escalating. But those early years of legislation, which we get to portray some of here, they're an example of what real leadership can accomplish in conjunction with compromising with people on both sides, and even activists like the Freedom Summer people. And I just think that's an amazing story to tell right now, when there's so little faith in what government can accomplish.
Brian, what do you think? What do you think LBJ would say
How do I know?
about this presidential campaign?
Everything's gone to hell. It is. It's unprecedented, and it's very different. I think I'm on my own little personal campaign because I still have optimism, and I think what's happened in LBJ's time, it was very common for him and all other senators and congressmen to socialize with each other. They would go out to dinner constantly. They would have picnics. They knew each other, both sides of the aisle. So when it came time to work out some legislation, are you going to call this guy a villain? You just had dinner with him. Of course not. You like him. You like his wife. You know his kids. Let's see. I know we're on the opposite side, but let's see somehow. Come on, Steve. We got to find a way to find some common ground. What we've lost then is what we have now. Is arms are folded on both sides, and they're not going to budge. A good idea from the other side of the ideological fence has to be an island, because I can't support it. I would not be supported by my party. Good luck. I might secretly go, I hope it works because it's a good idea, it helps the country. But you can't publicly support that, it's ridiculous. It's gotten to this kind of warped sense of some kind of sporting event, where if you win, that means I lose. And we gotta get away from that. It's not it. If you win, we all win. We all benefit from what that great idea was. And you have to sacrifice yourself, just like Johnson knew he was sacrificing his political career when he pushed through the Civil Rights Act in 1964. We have to have more of those people willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good of the country.
I've already offered to be Brian's campaign manager when he runs. But hasn't happened yet. But if you clap loud enough when we leave, maybe.
Yes, sure. I'm gonna leave making movies to do public. Oh my God.
Put up or shut up, that's all I'm
If
saying.
I was in a small hamlet or something, that'd be fine, you know? Those parking tickets, come on, let's fix those.
Potholes.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's open it up to questions for Bryan Cranston and Jay Roach. I'm gonna, tell me your name.
I speak to me,
Say it again. Yeah.
Edwin Rudetsky.
Edwin Rudetsky, I believe,
I had one.
has been at 1,000 of our Q&As and
Wow.
is often, he's kind of like he's like our Helen Thomas. He always gets to ask the first question. So here you
Sure, they're
go.
always good.
Helen Thomas. How about Helen Hayes, for Pete's sake? First off, my wife and I saw you on Broadway.
Wow.
This was electrifying. Lady Bird that was not an actress. That was a reincarnation of Lady Bird. Now, you are not 6'4".
No.
You were 6'5" in the movie.
Oh.
When you spoke to one of the representatives, I remember a picture of Johnson and Emmanuel Sella, a little Jewish
Yeah.
representative from Brooklyn, and he was bent over like a pretzel
Yeah.
over, and you did it perfectly. Now, aside from this, and of course I remember the golden days of mobilization for youth, HARU Act, Head Start, and all the money being poured into education at the lower end. Unfortunately, that all went away. One last thing. I love this place. I love being recognized by a man whose name I forget from day to day. But I asked this before, there is no place like this. We lost Thalia in New York City. We lost the Irving Place Theater. We lost all the little art theaters around. This is not a little art theater, but it's a place that all of us can go to and meet the people who make these beautiful things. It's like going to a museum and instead of seeing a Van Gogh, you meet Van Gogh. Hey man, what happened to your ear? What can we do? And nobody's made a movement. This is how do you pronounce it? FAID, ACC? I mean, we are all accomplices in this by doing nothing to keep a theater. I'll stop. To keep a theater, to keep a theater like this. What can we do to keep a Palm d'Or here for us?
Steve is Steve? There's nothing. Well, there's nothing that we can do now. This is a closed book. But you can support the new regime that's coming in. And again, I wanted to say that we have no ill feelings toward them. They've been very nice people. They're just business people, and they saw this opportunity and worked out with Westfield Mall that this was Westfield felt it was a better situation for them, and that's the way it goes. I think there might be something else opening up at some point, but you're doing what anyone could do. You're supporting small theater or small movie theaters or or a bookstore, or those are great things.
Good, I like it.
Oh well, we appreciate that. Everybody appreciates that. We had a great run. We really enjoyed our time here, but all good things come to an end, and it's the end of our road.
And, movies are a very communal experience. We find there are very few places where this many people come together to share an experience. And the one thing I'll say, I don't know exactly the plans of the new company, but it is incredibly important that when an independent film plays here, or frankly anywhere else, vote. Go and support those films. Because that's what we've been here for all along, is to support those films, to support the artists involved in those films, the directors and the actors. Support those films when you see them, when they play anywhere here in Palm Springs. So that's what I'll say. It is a closed chapter. You never know what's going to happen. I could always bump some money off Brian. More money. Let's see. Yes?
I don't need the microphone, but I just wanted to ask Brian, did you ever listen to any of the audio tapes of Johnson? I assume you did, but they're all pretty interesting. I've listened to hundreds of them. They used to teach U.S. history, and I'm really interested in all of U.S. history, but that's a really amazing, era itself.
It is.
And,
He taped virtually everything in his 5 years in the White House there. Interestingly enough, is that when, as tradition has it, the outgoing president escorts the incoming president around the White House, and that was Richard Nixon, and he said, "You're going to want to keep this recording device because it's going to help you when you're going to write your memoirs and everything. You're going to want to remember what you said, and make sure that you keep people honest about what they said in public and what they say in private. So you're going to want to do that." And he initially thought, "No, I don't want to do that," but then eventually brought back in the recording device. I don't know whatever happened with that story, but
He wouldn't have resigned. He wouldn't have had to resign if Johnson didn't convince him to take it. It's a true story. Beschloss had that in the thing. And we listened to dozens and dozens of those taped phone calls. They're all available online now, and they're cross-indexed at another site. If you just type in on Google LBJ phone calls, you will get the most incredible treasure trove of historical first-person access to the primary stuff.
And one of our consultants, Michael Beschloss, actually compiled, in the year that this happens, the first year of his presidency, he compiled the phone calls in historical context. And you can get it in an audiobook. And it's fascinating, and it's like a little history lesson, but it's entertaining all the way through. Michael Beschloss, you can just Google it and put it on your iPhone or something and listen to it. It's really, really entertaining.
One of the most incredible sets of phone calls was that week that Walter was fired, when he was caught in the bathroom. And hearing the lawyers talk to LBJ and hearing all the people that called up about Walter, I mean, I listened to every single call. There were like dozens every single day. And there's a whole bunch of calls of Walter, and then they instantly disappear. No more Walter, and then all the people dealing with it. It was an incredible, you can really, and that's what I think is great about these kind of films. We'll never tell the full history of any particular situation. It's a story about history that's designed to hopefully open the conversation and drive you to these great resources that are available, these amazing biographies, the Robert Caro books, Taylor Branch's book, Pillar of Fire. I've never been more moved by any documentary account of the civil rights movement. I mean, there's so many incredible things. So our thing is just to get you interested in the story, but we urge you to dig deeper. This is an incredible transitionary phase, and there's so many great documents connected to it.
We left actually a really good question on the table, which is, LBJ was 6'4". You are not. I would imagine that part of this is in your performance, and part of this is in the way the film was shot to create a full-size LBJ.
Yeah. Fun size, I go. Yeah, originally I thought, Jay and I had this conversation. I said, is there a way that we can hire everyone who's smaller than me?
Which we did for a while.
We did. We started trying to hire everyone who's 5'8". I'm touching 6 foot, and if we can hire someone who's 5'8" or lower, then it would really be able to. I could tower over them. And then we had some difficulty in looking for that, and Frank Langella became available, and we thought, oh, to hell with it. Let's just, So, and he's much taller than I am, so he had to. In fact, there's a little trickery that we do in the dinner scene when I said, "Now I'm coming for you, Dick, and I love you more than my own daddy." That one, and I come around, I actually step up on a little bit so that we're eye to eye.
Don't look too closely at that shot.
You see it again, you'll see it. It's like, whoop.
He does a Groucho. Right.
And I tried to do it like this. So I tried to go on my tiptoes so that you wouldn't notice the difference. But I don't know how.
You gotta wear the
It's all a bunch of trickery.
Know about it, but
and the makeup itself was created by Bill Corso, brilliant makeup artist. 2.5 hours of makeup for the prosthetics, cheek prosthetics, a nose, a chin, and my ears. Of course, they put a prosthetic behind it to just make them push out a little bit, which makes you pay attention to it. And then another piece that started up here and dropped it down about another 1.5 inches. So it was 2.5 hours. They took my hairline and cut it back 2 inches, and then thinned it all out to where, because he was really thin-haired. And that saved me about 45 minutes to an hour a day by just having them do it to my hair and not having to wear a wig. So, it's all a matter of time management and that sort of thing. But it was interesting, sitting in the mirror with a cup of coffee in the morning before anybody gets there, it's me. And Bill goes to work with his assistant, Katrina, and 2 hours later, I could see LBJ starting in the mirror. And it helps as an actor, you start then gearing up for what you're about to do for the next 10.5 hours or whatever. And
there's a time-lapse video online. You typed in like LBJ makeup time-lapse or something. It's up on the internet. You can see him transform within that time-lapse video.
Question right here.
Couple of questions. There was no mention of Linda, the daughter. Lucy was there. And then, do you know that one dreadful advertisement? God, I remember when it was shown on television too. Did LBJ actually create that, or did an advertising agency create? It really did just run once.
right.
And the LBJ library in Austin has, or not Austin, somewhere in Texas, okay, has wonderful recordings also.
They were
The movie is great.
extremely helpful. Mark Updegrove, who's the president of the LBJ library down there, extremely helpful to all of us personally and from a production standpoint, opened their doors to us and allowed us to, because they had a vested interest too. They wanted for us to get it right. As far as Lucy and Linda, there was an issue. One of them wasn't going to have any kind of dialogue. So one of the daughters, which you did see in a couple of the scenes, but she was a background person, an extra person, whereas one of them who actually talks to me was hired as an actress, and I think there was, we didn't feel that we needed to hire another actress to not have any lines, so that's what.
That scene with Lucy was a Brian idea to just show the sacrifice that Johnson had made with his family, and we got to meet Lucy Baines Johnson at the LBJ Library. Such an amazing woman, and we got, that was very intimidating to show it down there because in Austin, people revere both LBJ and Lady Bird, maybe Lady
Especially
Bird more than LBJ. So we showed it down there and got a tremendous reception. And then a couple days later, we showed it at the Carter Center in Atlanta, right next to the King thing there. So we went right into the most potentially skeptical audiences, and we seemed to get away with it.
What are they today? Have you shown?
Here's a question
What
right
did they
here.
say? They were very supportive, especially in the Carter Center. Well, actually in both places, but they were very. I think what happened with Johnson, because so much of his legacy again is fogged by, as you look backwards in time to Vietnam, people have forgotten those years of tremendous accomplishment. So for people in Austin to have that story told is just, it's just a great experience for them. So they're very, very pleased that we decided to take that story on.
Here's a question right here, ma'am.
We got to see you on your throne. Where are your crowns?
I think that's referring to the Jimmy Kimmel sketch.
That. I thought you meant LBJ sitting on the throne.
Yeah, one of the.
I know, you meant that.
Is that what they call those? The crowns? That's amazing.
The throne. I'll just address that was fun. That was a fun sketch I did for Kimmel, but no, there were several idiosyncrasies about LBJ that a lot of people know, and one of them was that he did that. He actually led people into his bathroom, dropped trowel, and plopped down. And it was.
Did you do that on Kimmel?
I did it on Kimmel actually too, and he got people back on their heels, and he intimidated them. He just got them off kilter, and he did anything and everything to get them, to agree with him. And one of the things I noticed is that he would come up to someone and he'd go, "Now, Steve, look at how's that dog of yours? I know he was having some troubles. Now, listen here, we got to do something about it." He would take a hand on the shoulder and then turn it, and all of a sudden he's like a prisoner, and hold him down. I like the scene also in the elevator with Bill Fulbright. That was fun too, where you got to see him do a little victory dance, and he corners somebody. That's what he was known for. He was ruthless in how he did it. And he would cajole, or he would be happy, or he'd dig in and make you upset, or whatever he had to do to get it done.
Kay Shackleton.
JK.
Hi. The end of the movie also kind of looks like a beginning. So I'm wondering, is there going to be a part 2?
Is there going to be a part 2?
Robert Schenken has written a sequel to the play called The Great Society, which picks up immediately after the election. And I think it goes all the way, does it go all the way to 68?
It goes to March 31st of 1968, where
when Johnson
I will
chooses
not
not to run.
accept, that speech where he doesn't accept his party's nomination.
I saw that play. I got to watch the first play and the second play run back to back in Seattle with the other actor, Jack.
I don't know. Who knows what the other actor?
Are you up for this sequel, Brian? Are you up for this role?
I think the other actor is up for it. I was thinking about it, and I think I'm not going to do it because, for having done the play,
Cinemark has bought the rights.
Damn them.
I started this 4 years ago, and living in that skin and feeling all him and all about it, and it was great, a great experience. But we did the play in Boston, we did it in New York, and we did the movie, and I really thought about it, and I wondered if I feel like the journey is not finished, am I good with playing this guy? And I'm just very curious and about other things and what else is out there. So as of now, I have not agreed to participate in the play version of it. So that's the status.
Our great friend Leighton Gibb.
I'm a big fan, so I'm focused on your EGOT. Was there ever any thought of making this a release rather than having it on HBO?
A feature release.
I should say, yes. And also, you guys worked together 2 films, and they're both extraordinary. Is there plans to work more in another project in the future?
Definitely, we're looking for new things to do. I'm trying to cook up something. I want to work with him and Julianne Moore. That's my dream, to do 2 of them, because I got to work with her on the Sarah Palin thing, so I'm actively searching. What was your other question?
Winning the EGOT, which is the
Go
Emmy,
ahead and answer that
Grammy,
one.
Oscar, Tony.
I know the intention of it. I don't pay attention to any of those things. I really don't. I don't read reviews. I just like to work. And I try to do the best job I can, the most honest work I can. And people are gonna like it, and some people are gonna not like it. And you know, Jay was talking about sometimes you read the reviews. If you can read 10 good reviews and 1 bad one, and the only one you focus on is the bad one. So it's like, I don't need that. You know, actors know and artists know what they've done, and you can feel confident about it without being braggadocio about it. But I feel confident about it, and you want to present it and let it go. So I don't think about those things, you know, awards and things. That's for other people to drum up, and HBO is very interested in that, and they're positioning things, of course. But you know, I don't. If I don't get a call for that, I don't get a call. It's not going to change my life at all.
Can't believe somebody would ask about the EGOT.
You ask about that all the
We're
time.
asking about at dinner.
Asked at dinner, asked on the radio Friday.
He can sing, so
Asked
I
me by
found that out tonight.
the entire EGOT phenomenon, which I think came from Tracy Jordan on 30 Rock.
Have a question there?
Question over here. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Johnson had such a unique speech pattern. I'm wondering how you stayed focused with working that low jaw. Did you wear a dental prosthetic?
I did not wear a dental prosthetic, but I did notice when I was down there in the hill country how much their lower jaw just kind of hangs down a lot. And it just, I don't know, and there was a silhouette S that he had a lot of, you know, and so I just started hanging around with those people and went out to the Johnson Ranch and talked to a bunch of people, and there's a distinctive quality to it that was fun to play with, and I would stay with it for most of the shooting. I would stay with it because it's just so much fun to play, and yeah,
Some actors would stay in character. You would hear about people who do that to kind of in a method way. Brian did it so that he could be free by staying in the 1964 pre-sexual harassment rules. He could just harass anyone on the set at will in character. So he
Wait a minute.
He could grab my ass and just
Hold on. If
Well,
I said, darling,
men
I
and
love
women.
that pink on you, I think that looks great on you, would you think that was sexual harassment? I thought, darling, I think you look fantastic. Oh my goodness gracious, look at you. Now, I don't think that's sexual harassment. Now,
No,
you
but when he and Bradley Whitford can do an incredibly inappropriate Clinton, and we had Dick, we had Frank Langella doing Nixon, and they would wander around the Oval Office talking about wife swapping, like, I don't know, Muriel for Lady Bird, I don't know, maybe that's just, it was like the most hilarious. I want to do something on stage live sometime where they're just, the 3 or 4 of them are up there improvising off of the conditions of, get somebody like Will Ferrell as Bush and the 3 of them and just do a rock the vote thing or something where you just throw in throw in improv cues, because they are, Bradley is one of the funniest. Everything as Clinton, every single thing was dirty, so you couldn't, wow, look at that clapper, wow, that's, okay. I can't do it, but he would just, he was so funny.
Jay, I want to pivot to a broader question. Obviously, this is an HBO film, and you've done at least 2 prior HBO films, right?
That's right.
You've made big pictures like Borat. You were the executive producer. Meet the Parents was just a tremendously funny comedy. And then you made Trumbo.
Right.
How much more difficult is it to make a film like Trumbo? Than sort of a broader, more commercial.
Well, the commercial things are actually, I find, more stressful because there's so much money at stake. Comedy is so unbelievably difficult because you're having to do everything you do for dramas is just keep the story going, great characters, great casting, great everything else, and also be hilarious every few minutes. And so for me, I'm actually more comfortable and more confident directing these kind of dramas, particularly in political situations, because I'm so inspired to understand what's going on. So I really work really hard to understand it, and even if I don't know the answers, just the challenge of trying to figure it out and trying to be part of the conversation, trying to make it relevant, it's more fulfilling. And so I don't know how to explain it, I'm just more secure in that street. In comedy, everybody in comedy is unbelievably neurotic, mostly crazy, and I love everybody that I've worked with in comedy. I had a great time, and I want to do more. I'll go back. I hope, actually, Brian is a lot funnier than people may realize. You're about to see that in a big movie that he's about to do, that he just shot with, if you don't mind me plugging, with James Franco and my buddy John Hamburg directing. And I want to do it, but that's really hard. That's really, doing big budget comedies is really hard.
We actually didn't answer your question. After the run in Boston, Robert Schenken, the playwright and screenwriter, and I and Steven Spielberg had a meeting, and he said that he wants to produce this movie. And at the time, we didn't know if it was going to be a theatrical movie or if we would shop it to an HBO or something. We were kind of on the fence about that. But he said he wanted to do it. He also said he was going to come to the Broadway show and watch it at least 4 or 5 times. And after that, he would know if he's the best candidate to direct it. He would have to have a sense of it, that he knew how to crack it and tell it as a visual story as opposed to a verbal story that it was on the stage. And he came 4 times to the show. And each time to the show, he comes backstage and I go, and? He goes, well, I'm working on it. He eventually realized, and this is really kudos to him, that he was not the best person to direct this movie. He didn't find a way in. So he had a conversation and a meeting with Jay and talked about the show and talked about the story. And Jay came to the play as well. And they offered him the role of directing the movie. And Jay did find a way. He did have a visual idea of how to tell this story. And so we couldn't have asked for a better support team than Steven Spielberg and his team to be able to support us along the way, but step aside when he realized he wasn't the best candidate. Interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's fascinating.
I didn't even meet with him. I didn't get to meet with him. I just heard he put me up for the gig. We had known each other because he was going to direct Meet the Parents briefly.
That would have having him direct Meet the Parents.
It might have been great, but he was he just said I'm not sure, and he wasn't. He admitted he was.
So you get all of Steven Spielberg's cast-offs.
Which I want all of them. I'm fine with that. They keep being as good as this. I Meet the Parents and all the way. I'll take it.
Final question for you, Brian. I don't think I've ever asked you this. When we first met years ago, I think you were on Seinfeld in a very, very memorable
Soup Nazi?
role. No.
Was the soup
I
Nazi?
was about to say-
No, the dentist. You're an anti-dente. Then you went to Malcolm in the Middle and had great success there in a comic role. Then came Heisenberg. Then came Broadway. Then came Trumbo, and now this all the way as a film. Where do you get your sense of what's right for you and where you see opportunities that are really incredible?
It's all about the story. I use the same sense of instinct that all of you use. When you read a good novel and it resonates and you think about it and it stays with you during the day and you can't wait to get back to bed to read the next chapter, it's the same thing. When you read a good screenplay or a good hour-long pilot series script, it stays with you. And from an actor standpoint, what happens is you start to conjure the character. You start to think of the character involuntarily. It just starts to come to you because it resonated so deeply with you. So then I know that's a good sign. When it's an important story, when it's supported by a well-written script, those are the two things. And they're not always the same. You can have a great story that the script doesn't really measure up. It just doesn't, it's frustrating. But when they all hit on that high mark, it's only then that I really evaluate the character. Because to me, you could have a fantastic character, but if you don't care about the story and it's not written very well, it's not gonna go anywhere. It won't be satisfying to you or to an audience. So it has to go in that order: story, script, character, and then director. Does the director have a sense of that they want to work together, cooperation, collaboration? Do they have a same sense of where this character should go or could go, or are they inspiring me to do my best and that sort of thing? And that's certainly what I found with Jay, is that I talk about a story once where we were at a table reading, and I don't even know if you remember doing this, because it's just who you are. And someone was reading or something, and I must have grimaced or something, and he said, "What was that?" I don't even know who he was talking to, and he said, "What was that?" And I go, "No, what?" He goes, "Well, you had a reaction to that." And I went, "I did?" You know, and it was a little thing. And it's not even worth mentioning. It's just no, what is it? Well, it's just, maybe this is not quite exactly where it should be, or maybe that could be popped up a little bit, or, whatever I said. I don't even remember what it was. And it was the fact that he wanted to know, he wanted to bring it in, he wanted to include everyone's creative input, because if everyone raises their level of input just incrementally, but everyone does, then all of a sudden the entire production is raised. And it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of effort, but he's that way.
I wish I could publish the notes you gave on the cuts, because your notes and the way the cut was coming together were like director's notes. They were fantastic notes, and I show Brian and a couple of the other cast members, but really only Brian in the step by step every single cut. And I got notes back that really it would be like, I don't know, 80% of the film, but that extra that it is now, but that extra 20% there were huge improvements in the storytelling. And it's great to collaborate with someone who's not just an actor, producer, but is a storyteller, a true creative buddy, and that's what, I took the job on all the way before we had even started shooting Trumbo, and I was like, afterwards I went, oh man, what if Trumbo doesn't go well? We're married, man, for 2 films. That's 2 years of your life. It looks so easy, like they just did a couple films. 2 years of really close, living together, and fortunately it did, and but it was because of the the high quality of input that these films are as good as they are?
Well, it's an incredible film. It is incredibly fitting that here in our final month that this project was ready to screen and that you both could be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Don't let it die. You should run. You should become a community spokesperson and go to the new people and say, "This is what we look at the power of this group.
Yeah.
This is not a normal clientele. Like you guys you can run this theater. Why not? Come on. Tell TriStone. I love that. Just tell them what you want and don't settle for less."
And Brian, we appreciate your dedication.
Thank you very much. Thanks again to all of you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.